know, one of the best things about having an animation review channel that thousands of people watch is I get recommended a lot of awesome stuff to take a look at. And one of the best things to ever get recommended to me is The Loud House. Now, I only started watching the show a few months back since so many people kept telling me about it. And after only a few days of watching it, I became hooked. It's about a boy named Lincoln Loud living in a house with his parents and 10 sisters. And for the most part, almost every single episode has been really entertaining to me. It's really hard for me not to bond with these characters and not be totally engaged with their stories. And even though it's only 2 seasons in, it shot out dozens of great episodes that it just feels deserving of a top 10 list right now. And because season 3 debuts tomorrow, I figured this would be a great way to get ready for it. Now, as is custom with my top 10 list, this list is only for episodes that are under 15 minutes long. So episodes like Tricked, Relative Chaos, and 11 Loud's Elite Bin aren't going to be on this list, because it just doesn't seem fair to put specials up against regular episodes. Also, I already gave Tricked and 11 Loud's Elite Bin their own reviews, so they've gotten enough praise from me already. And Relative Chaos more than likely will get its own review too. Everything else is fair game though, so let's count down the best episodes from the first 2 seasons of The Loud House.
In the Loud House, 1 boy and 10 girls, wouldn't trade it for the world.
Back in Black. Now, I've referenced Lucy a handful of times already in other reviews, so I guess it's no surprise that one of the episodes that's focused on her would be on this list. When Lincoln invites his friend Rusty over, who looks quite a lot like Rocky Dennis from Mask, he brings his little brother over. Wait, what's his brother's name again?
Hey Rocky, make yourself at home.
Really? His brother's name is Rocky. Yeah, I think the staff knows he looks like Rocky Dennis. That can't be a coincidence. Anyway, Lucy ends up being smitten with Rocky, but when Rocky seems uninterested, the Loud sisters give her a makeover so he'll like her. This is where the majority of the episode's humor comes from. The makeover scene, for one, has some great homage-centered humor. And seeing Lucy trying to act like a normal girl is hilarious because she's so awkward about it.
Great shot, Rocky Bear.
What? I totally shanked it. My ball went down a rain gutter.
Ha ha, ha ha. You're so funny.
This episode is adorable just because this seems like what little kids are like when they have their first crush. They never know how to handle it. And honestly, it's an interesting concept seeing someone like Lucy smitten with someone who's just a normal kid. And I would say that next to the parents' faces, a lot of fans were curious what a normal Lucy would look like. So you can add that element to this episode. And Lucy and Rocky are actually really cute together. It's hard not to enjoy them. By far, one of the better Lucy-centered episodes in my opinion.
Lucy, no. Regular and normal.
In the Loud House, 1 boy and 10 girls, wouldn't trade it for the world.
Baby Steps. This is a nice episode to watch if you have a little sibling on the way. It's about Clyde thinking his parents are having a second baby and asking Lincoln to teach him how he can be a good big brother. Now, like I've said before, I'm a big fan of Clyde. Even though I can see why some people might be annoyed by him, I genuinely find him hilarious, and I think he can be a pretty interesting character. And this episode is a good example of that. But not only that, it does a great job showing how much Lincoln cares about his younger sisters, and how he's always looking out for them. He shows Clyde some tactics he uses to help his sisters, if they hurt themselves, if they're fighting, or if they just need something to snack on. And some of his tactics actually seem pretty effective.
I think I know a compromise that will make you both happy. The evil trolls attacking your tower!
Get him!
Also, some of the jokes in this episode are really good. Like when Lisa asked Lincoln to make her a sandwich, for example.
I can isolate uranium, but they won't let me use a butter knife.
And I would say this was one of the first times Clyde showed off how multi-dimensional he can be. When he first appeared, he just seemed like the typical best friend, and his biggest character trait was being obsessed with Lori. But here, he's actually shown to be very goal-driven and deathly afraid of failing others.
What if I give bad crush advice and my future sibling gets their heart broken? Or what if I can't choreograph a ribbon dance and they drop out of school and start holding up convenience stores? I'm going to be a terrible big brother.
Clyde, you're spiraling!
And the way he gets his confidence is very heartwarming too. That's actually the best way to describe this episode. Very heartwarming. And also, very informative.
A big brother's work is never done.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Potty mouth. This is by far one of the funniest episodes of the whole series to me. It's about the youngest Loud sibling, Lily, getting an interview with a very prestigious daycare. But when the other siblings think they heard Lily say a bad word, they all feel like she learned it from their behaviors. So they try to teach her better lessons so she can get into this daycare. Now, a few of the episodes on this list I really admire because they mix humor in with heartwarming moments. But this one seems to focus a lot more on comedy, and it works in the heartwarming aspects pretty, well, subtly. Whenever they try to replicate the incidents that made them swear, and replace the word they used with something else, the moments end up being even worse, but they still keep their composure so they can set a good example for Lily.
You stretched it out! And that's okay, because now we can share.
Aww. Dashing through the snow.
That's actually pretty smart writing right there. And one thing I also like is the woman who's interviewing Lily for the daycare, Miss Shuttlesworth. At first, you think she's gonna be one of those stick-up-her-ass, tight-necked, condescending, prestigious snobs like you've seen a million times before. And yeah, while she has that tone about her, she doesn't have that attitude. In fact, she's got a few funny lines herself.
Lily, say hi.
Okay, I see why you said goo. It's all over your hand.
And I, of course, gotta talk about Lisa taking Lily's place during the interview. See, when the siblings think their teaching's failed, they swap Lily with Lisa so Lisa can make Lily look good enough for the daycare. And honestly, some of the scenes with Lisa should make me feel very uncomfortable, but I found myself laughing so hard at this one scene in particular that I was actually crying.
Lily? Oh, my land! That's pungent!
Poo-poo.
I swear, I don't know why that was so funny to me. I think it was because I honestly didn't expect it, even though I should have, because really, that's a joke that kind of has to be made. But I really didn't expect them to do that with Lisa. And the reaction to Miss Shuttlesworth just adds to its humor. If you're a more humor-driven person, then I would definitely recommend this episode to at least see how great the humor in this show can get.
I was instructed to act like a 1-year-old. Ergo, I did. There's just no pleasing you people.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Save the date. So I actually really enjoy the relationship between Lincoln and Ronnie Ann, which people seem to be kind of mixed about. And I can see why. It's kind of like Arnold and Helga from Hey Arnold, with Ronnie Ann acting out her crush on Lincoln by constantly bullying him. And something like that can really spread out people's opinions. So I guess because I always enjoyed Helga and never minded her behavior, I don't mind Ronnie Ann's either. And honestly, I do think this show gets some pretty good episodes out of these two, and this is the best one. In this episode, Lincoln's friends keep making fun of him when Ronnie Ann keeps picking on him, but also leaving him love notes. So he insults her without realizing she's standing behind him and hurts her feelings. And it turns out Ronnie Ann is Bobby's little sister, which, yeah, was never actually addressed before this. So Bobby breaks up with Lori, causing Lori to snap, and, for lack of a better word, force Lincoln to go on a double date with her and Bobby to make up with Ronnie Ann, so Bobby will take her back. And while on the double dates, Lincoln finds he has a lot in common with Ronnie Ann and they start to have fun.
And don't get me started on the kissing. It's so gross. Who does that?
Yeah, and how about all the selfies? Don't get my bad side, Bobby.
You don't have a bad side, babe. Click, click.
Until Lincoln's friends show up and Lincoln's afraid of them seeing him on a date with her. Now, to be honest, this episode is filled with stuff I should not like. Lincoln's the one getting picked on, yet he's also the one being treated like the bad guy. Lori is forcing him to do something against his will, and when Lincoln tells Clyde about his situation, Clyde starts trying to sabotage Lori and Bobby's relationship. I should hate all of that, but honestly, I don't, because I think it's all executed really well. Nothing these characters are doing feels out of character. I can actually see all of them doing this. Hell, even though Clyde's trying to sabotage Lori and Bobby, he still puts those plans on hold to help Lincoln out when their friends show up. Which, by the way, results in some amazing one-liners.
Ooh, what's that with the whipped cream on top? Sorry. That's a to-go order. See? It's gone.
Also, I did find Lincoln's speech at the end to be both genuine and heartwarming. And I do get a caring vibe from these two when they're together. While some will probably hate this episode, I find it really cute, really funny, and just an overall enjoyable watch.
You're looking lovely this evening.
Yeah, we weirdos clean up nice.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Cover Girls. Now this is an episode that utilizes all the Loud siblings in one of the best ways possible. When Lincoln misses his curfew, all his sisters team up to cover for him until he gets back, so their parents don't know he's not home yet. But when Lincoln agrees to cover for a few of them during spring cleaning, he accidentally gets left having to cover for all of them, which leads to some really fast-paced and really creative humor as Lincoln starts impersonating all of his sisters.
I scrub and scrub, yet the stain of human suffering remains.
I want to talk to Pop-Pop first!
No, me first!
How I wonder what you are! Stage dive!
I really love his impressions too. They're really well done considering it's a kid actor doing all of them. In fact, I go as far as to say that this is the kid actor version of Tom Kenny in Mimic Madness, which I would say is pretty high praise. But things get real crazy when their grandfather does a video call and wants to see all of them. So Lincoln sends out an SOS to his sisters and impersonates as many of his sisters as he can until they come back. And soon, all of them are impersonating other siblings.
And I got a new outfit for half off, which was weird because none of it was missing.
But I knew I was missing one key component, and that was sodium sofa cushion.
That just adds more humor into the mix. Just from the sheer fact that they all know their siblings so well, they can do perfect impressions of them. Honestly, yeah, when you think about it, who would know everything about how you act more than your siblings? It's just a very ingenious episode, and it utilizes all the characters in a clever way. Explaining any more at this point would be a disservice, because it's an episode that just needs to be seen. It's an entire house of laughs.
Bye, Pop-Pop!
Oh boy, that was great.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Homespun. This is a perfect blend of humor and emotion right here. It's about the Loud siblings complaining about their house, since there are so many things wrong with it. And when a tornado watch hits their neighborhood, they start looking at all the benefits of their house possibly being blown away. But once they start looking back on all the memories they've had in the house, they realize they wouldn't want to lose it.
You know, dudes, maybe we've been too hard on the old crib. It's got some perks.
I personally like stories like this, about how you can always make the best out of a bad situation. And that's what these characters have been doing with this house. They've learned to not only adapt to its flaws, but get actual benefits out of them to where those flaws aren't even flaws anymore. But there's also some really nice moments. Like when the kids try to give their house a paint job for their parents' anniversary, but this ends up happening instead.
Best anniversary gift ever!
Also, their change from wanting their house to blow away to realizing they actually love their house is paced really well. It feels like their views change because of their memories, and not because the episode called for it. Even the last minute where the episode tries to get really dramatic actually feels dramatic. You actually get a sense of urgency along with the characters for this house. It's just all handled in the best ways possible, and I also want to give it some props for pointing out the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning.
A tornado watch doesn't mean a twister's coming, but rather that conditions are right for one.
I honestly didn't know what the difference was, so that's another thing the Loud House has made me learn. This is an episode that just seems to have it all, and that's despite a very basic setup. A definite classic, in my opinion.
In the Loud House, in the Loud House, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Snow Way Down. You know, it looks like the season 2 finale decided to make some improvements to past episodes, as both of them seem like rewrites. Snow Way Out seems like a rewrite of Mall of Duty, and Snow Way Down seems like a rewrite of Roughin' It. But honestly, both are better versions of those episodes in my opinion, and Snow Way Down was my favorite of the two. It's about Lincoln joining Clyde and his dads for winter vacation, and Lincoln starts seeing firsthand how overprotective Clyde's dads are, which puts a damper on their fun time. And when Lincoln tells Clyde about it, Clyde decides to tell his dads that they need to give him space and trust that he can keep himself safe. But when that proves too challenging for them, Clyde decides to go down a dangerous ramp called the Ramp of Insanity to prove to them that he can take care of himself. Again, like Save the Date, there's a few things here I should be annoyed by, most specifically Clyde's dads. But honestly, their overprotectiveness doesn't bug me in the slightest, and once again, it's because it doesn't feel out of character. And there is a good message behind it, that sometimes it's best to trust your kid to figure out the world and its dangers based off your teachings when they reach a mature age, instead of coddling them all their lives. Because that'll just make everything you taught them all for naught if they can't even apply it to the real world.
They're just looking out for me. Clyde, you're wearing a seatbelt on the couch. My dads don't want me to get injured in an earthquake. We are only 3 states away from a fault line.
And it turns out that their teachings actually do benefit Clyde. In fact, they benefit him so much that by the end, he proves himself to be the most capable person of facing real danger.
Oh, I can't look.
Clyde, what about your crippling fear of heights? I was trying not to think about that.
This is easily my favorite Clyde-centered episode, not just because it has a great message about why being overprotective isn't always a bad thing so long as you trust your kid to take care of himself when the time is right, but also because it shows how all of Clyde's annoying habits he's shown throughout the series have actual purposes to them. It's up there as one of the Loud House's best written episodes to me, and if it's a sign of things to come from season 3, then boy am I ever excited. Here's hoping that line doesn't bite me in the ass though.
I'll give him a little privacy.
Get in here, Lincoln.
Hugs in the Loud House, in the Loud House, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Toads and Tiaras. Now it seems like the twins, Lola and Lana, get kind of a mixed reception from Loud House fans, but I personally really enjoy them. They've had a few really good episodes centered around them, like Patching Things Up for example, which I was also considering putting on this list. But I decided to stick to just one twin-centered episode, and Toads and Tiaras is the best one in my opinion. In this episode, Lincoln starts coaching Lola for one of her beauty pageants because the winner gets 2 tickets to his favorite amusement park, Dairyland. But when Lola gets injured during practice, Lincoln enlists Lana to take her place with the promise of taking her to Dairyland with him. Now while twin swapping is nothing new in kids shows, this one is a little bit more interesting because Lana is a filth-loving grease monkey. So for her not to become a clean, prim and proper pageant girl is kind of interesting to see tackled. Also, she ends up enjoying being on the other side of the spectrum for once, which leads to some pretty deep emotional moments with her near the end when her old habits keep coming out.
No matter what I do, I can't be prim and perfect like these girls. Maybe there's something wrong with me.
And its message at the end, while pretty overused, is actually handled in a fresh way, which is a prime example of why I like this show. Now I know some people might have issues with Lincoln's behavior, since he's portrayed kinda like SpongeBob was in The Great Snail Race.
Lana, you can't scratch your butt. What? It helps me think. Well, knock it off. Those who scratch lose the match.
But I think this one works a bit better because, well, Lincoln's an 11-year-old boy and he wants a free trip to his favorite amusement park. So it kinda makes sense why he'd get carried away. And even then, he's not really brutal, he's just kinda picky. And he's not breaking Lana down physically or anything. Lana makes it clear she's okay with learning how to be this way because she wants those tickets too. And that's where I think the episode The Great Snail Race dropped the ball. Everything Gary went through in that episode felt like it was against his will, whereas here, it doesn't feel that way at all. So I don't really have an issue with his behavior. And this is an overall entertaining episode. The scenes with Lana's grease monkey and ill-mannered sides coming out during the pageant are absolutely hilarious. Its portrayal of Lola as so passionate about her pageant career, she'll go fully psycho over it, is handled really nicely. And Lana's talent at the end is one of my favorite moments from the whole show, just because of how entertainingly creative and well made it is. And while I enjoy patching things up, I think that episode is best to show off how good these characters are together, which is fine. But this episode, I feel, can motivate people not to worry if they aren't at a standard that society says they should be at. And for kids especially, I think that's a very nice thing to teach them. It's kind of like this show's version of The Boy Who Would Be Queen from The Fairly Odd Parents, which I think is a very positive comparison. It's one I'd recommend to the newest viewers of this show.
Now, hold still while I work my magic.
Ugh, it smells like princess farts.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
L is for love. Yeah, this is the episode I've gotten the single most amount of requests to review from this show. In fact, it's not even close, and I can see why. This episode is spectacular. It's about the Loud siblings finding a secret admirer letter in the mail addressed to L Loud, and all of them think it could be for them from their crushes. And there's a nice little montage showing all of them interacting with their crushes, all of whom are literally like their better halves. So they all try to figure out who sent the letter by hinting their affections to them. All of them except for Luna, who doesn't believe that her crush returns her feelings.
You never told us the signal you gave Sam.
That's 'cause I didn't give one. The more I thought about it, the more I realized Sam's way out of my league, dudes.
And despite that simple setup, it's kinda cute seeing all of them trying to flirt with their crushes, and all the unique ways they do so. And the montages they have throughout this episode just always make me smile. I don't know why, I think it's because nothing in these montages or in this episode feels forced. Kinda like Save the Date or Back in Black, these seem like genuine feelings. Though, I call bullshit on Lucy's crush not being Rocky, what the hell? Anyway, I can't talk about this episode without talking about the ending, because that's the biggest reason so many people love this episode. Now, I hate the idea of spoiling this for anyone who hasn't seen this episode, so here's a mark you can skip to if you don't want me to spoil that. Who the hell am I kidding? No one ever listens to these. Alright, well, it's revealed that the Secret Admirer note was actually from Rita to Lynn Sr., because Secret Admirer notes were how Rita asked out Lynn Sr. So, it was a cute little thing they did every now and then for the anniversary of their first date, which is actually kinda nice. And this inspires all the siblings to send notes of their own to their crushes. And well, there's this little twist thrown in with Luna's crush, the one she was so afraid to approach.
See you later, Sam.
Okay, see ya!
Wow, what an ending!
Yeah, this is easily the Loud House's most memorable scene. Even though this wasn't the first time a character was revealed to be attracted to the same gender, this was still a pretty shocking twist because Nickelodeon has never outed a main character before. And this was a pretty, well, normal, realistic way of doing so. So it's really hard not to fall in love with it. Honestly, I think everything about this episode was handled perfectly, and I really don't have any complaints about it. And the only reason it's not number one, well, plain and simple, I just like this other episode more. There's literally no other reason. But this is one of the episodes I'd recommend watching the most to show off how great of a show The Loud House really is.
Dream on, Loons. You're the owner of a lonely heart.
Now, before I reveal number one, here are the episodes I'd rank 11 through 20. I'm just gonna be honest, this was probably the toughest list for me to make. Like, it's right up there with my top 10 best South Park episodes list. Because every episode in this 11 through 20 range, I considered putting on this list. In fact, most of them actually were on the list before I swapped them out with other episodes I heavily enjoy. And on top of that, I had multiple episodes I was considering for number one. but I decided to pick this one as the best episode from these first 2 seasons.
In the madhouse, 1.10 girls. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
For Bros About to Rock. Yeah, I decided to go with this as my favorite episode because this was the episode that actually got me hooked on the show. It's about Lincoln going to his first concert for his favorite band, Smooch. Yeah, kinda easy to guess what that's a satire of. But he doesn't want Luna to know about it because Luna has a habit of ruining first concert experiences. Well, Luna ends up figuring all of this out anyway and starts trying to help Lincoln and Clyde get ready for their concert. But Luna gets overly carried away and embarrasses Lincoln pretty hardcore, so he snaps at her and tells her that she's actually ruined everyone's first concerts. So Luna heartbrokenly agrees not to accompany him and Clyde to the Smooch concert. But then, he ends up not being able to get the tickets, and on top of that, he and Clyde get thrown in mall jail for trying to buy tickets from an undercover mall cop. Now, there are so many things about this episode that makes it amazing to me. The biggest one being when Luna gives her backstory to why first concerts are so important to her.
The Gimme Swelter tour. Up until that muggy June night, I didn't know who I wanted to be. But the moment Nick and the boys took the stage, it all started to become clear. It was like he was talking to me. It was in that moment I realized I was Luna Loud.
That's actually pretty relatable. That's something I think a lot of preteens and teenagers go through, not knowing who they are or what they want to be like until someone or something inspires them. And it's something that'll stick with them for the rest of their lives. It shows all Luna wants is to make her siblings experience what she experienced so they don't ever question who they are. She's just a very passionate character, and it's so hard not to find that engaging. This is probably one of the best portrayals of figuring out who you are and what you want to be like that I've seen in any Nickelodeon show, and that's a pretty tall order. Also, there are some really great hidden references in here, like the people waiting in line to get Smooch tickets, because they're all cartoon versions of the show's writing staff. That's awesome! But the biggest highlight is, and always will be, Luna's backstory and her willingness to make her brother's experience the best ever. To me, that's a sign of someone who really cares about you and wants to put you on the right path in life. Sure, while a lot of Loud House episodes have tackled that kind of portrayal, nothing ever did it to the level of this episode in my eyes. This just feels like the episode that has the most amount of purpose put in it, like it was something that wanted to be much more than just a great episode. Even though I absolutely adore L is for Love, and I love the message it's sending and the way it sent it, this one I feel is just more likely to stick with the viewers and remind them of what made them who they are to begin with. And for me, that's something very special.
Thanks for making my first concert unforgettable, Luna! Rock and roll!
And that sums up the whole show in my opinion. Something very special. When people started recommending this to me, I admit I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it. Even though the premise sounded interesting, it also sounded like something that could be very easily botched. But its first 2 seasons have shown me that this show has found a way to stand out and appeal to audiences everywhere. It's amazing to think that a show about a boy living in a house with 10 sisters could be so relatable, so humorous, and so charming. It's a show that's shown itself to be a lot more than it needed to be. And if the next few seasons can even come close to hitting the level of excellence that these first 2 have, then I think it's safe to say that the Loud House is going to be sticking around for a long time. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.